Right now, it looks like the Senate Commerce Committee on Boeing production and safety issues just starting their hearing on production and safety issues now with Chairman Senator Ted Cruz. Let's go ahead and listen here live from D.C. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC+.
Other aircraft and to the air traffic controllers near DCA. This is not acceptable. I fully expect that should the Army continue to refuse to provide the internal memo, this committee will exercise its full authorities to compel its production. Events that have transpired since the January crash underscore the precarious situation in the nation's airspace. Just last Friday, after the hearing, 3 flights were cleared for takeoff at DCA, while a military flyover was approaching Arlington National Cemetery. The U.S. Air Force T-38 came within just half of a nautical mile of lateral separation and as close as 200 feet of vertical separation from a Delta aircraft departing DCA for Minneapolis. The Delta flight's TCAS sounded a resolution advisory, alerting the pilots to a traffic collision and directing them to continue upwards to avoid a collision. This is far too close, seconds away from yet another disaster. The air traffic center that controls airspace around D.C. notified DCA about the flyover. That should have led to halted traffic. This serious communication breakdown is just the latest in a string of missteps that signal that the air traffic organization is under extreme stress. It is my expectation that all federal actors, when involved in any incident in the national airspace, will be forthcoming when this committee conducts its oversight to ensure flying remains the safest mode of transportation. And I want to be explicit to the Army. Every one of us here supports a strong national defense, but the Army does not have at its option ignoring the United States Senate. And if there is another accident, if another Black Hawk helicopter strikes another passenger jet and murders 67 people, because the Army refused to change its policy of turning off ADS-B out, and rather than act proactively to protect people's lives, the Army chose to protect its bureaucratic ass, those deaths will be on the Army's hands. None of us want that to happen. The responsible decision for the Army to make is to provide that memo to this committee today. And again, if the Army continues to stonewall, they will face a subpoena from this committee. That brings us to today's hearing. It is essential for members of this committee to hear directly from Boeing about its manufacturing challenges. I'm glad the CEO Kelly Ortberg is here today and here voluntarily. Mr. Ortberg, welcome, and thank you for testifying. For over a century, Boeing has been building aircraft in America. Beginning with the Boeing Model 1 seaplane in 1916, William Boeing built a company that became a household name. As the First World War broke out, the Boeing Airplane Company began building aircraft for the U.S. Navy. By 1919, Boeing's first aircraft designed for commercial purposes took flight. Throughout its storied history, Boeing aircraft have been synonymous with excellence, quality, and safety in flight. That was until October 2018, when a 737 MAX 8 aircraft operated by Lion Air crashed into the Java Sea, killing 189 people. 5 months later, Ethiopian Flight 302 would crash just after takeoff, killing 157 passengers and crew. 346 souls gone in an instant. Family members of those killed have since become tireless advocates for aviation safety. I welcome those family members who are in attendance today and convey my continued condolences for your loss and express my gratitude for your leadership. Thank you for turning your grief into advocacy. The MAX 8s were grounded soon after the second crash for more than 18 months in the U.S. as Boeing worked with the FAA on a software fix to prevent the technological breakdown that contributed to both crashes. I was among the very first senators to publicly call for grounding the plane, just days after the second crash. When the MAX returned to the air in late 2020, many hoped the worst was behind Boeing. But then on January 5th, 2024, Alaska Airlines Flight 1282 departed Portland International Airport en route to Ontario, California. Approximately 10 minutes into the flight, the mid-cabin exit door plug, a section of the fuselage built to seal off unused emergency exits, fell off the plane, leading to rapid depressurization of the cabin. Oxygen masks dropped, and belongings were sucked out of the gaping hole. The National Transportation Safety Board's review found that Boeing failed to include at least 3 of the 4 bolts needed to properly secure the door plug to the fuselage. Thankfully and miraculously, no lives were lost. But the incident produced fresh doubt about Boeing's ability to safely build planes. Repeated worries about production issues at Boeing and its subcontractors has led many to question the company's ability to design and manufacture safe aircraft. Efforts to cut corners in production or to move the next production phase before necessary, parts arrive, have led to unacceptable failures. Insufficient oversight of third-party suppliers and lack of sufficient internal auditing procedures created an unsustainable lack of safety culture at Boeing. Since the Alaska Airlines 1282 incident, Boeing says it is working hard to address those concerns, including by developing a plan under FAA oversight for renewed safety and quality in production processes. It recently adapted its Speak Up program to allow employees to confidently and anonymously submit a concern when something seems to be going wrong. While the culture will not change overnight, Boeing must continue its work with the FAA to bring safety and quality back fully to its production processes. The FAA has been evaluating key performance indicators, or KPIs, to track Boeing's progress on key metrics. From discussions with the FAA and Boeing, I am told the company is progressing well and is on track to simplify needlessly complex processes, identify points of weakness, reduce deficiencies, and ultimately improve safety. But these conversations alone will not be the proper reassurance. This committee today wants to hear what specific and concrete actions Boeing has taken to fix the problems. How is Boeing progressing in its KPIs? What changes has it implemented to ensure a strong safety culture? And how has Boeing adapted its quality management system? We want to hear these answers not just from the company's CEOs, but from the company's managers, engineers, and machinists. I know the workers at Boeing desperately want their company to succeed too. So to those at Boeing facilities who are watching, consider my door open to hearing directly from you how you believe Boeing is turning a corner and fixing what went wrong. President Trump is taking great strides to bring back American manufacturing. I very much hope that Boeing is part of that renaissance. I want Boeing to remain a beacon of American excellence in manufacturing. Our country is better off economically, our aviation system is safer, and our nation is stronger when Boeing is stronger. I now turn to Ranking Member Cantwell for her opening statement.
Mr. Chairman, can I have a moment, please? Can you receive
The committee will come to order.
shareholder?
The committee will come to order, and you will be removed if you disrupt the proceedings again.
I hope to see you back.
Mr. Chairman, first, before we begin on the point of today's hearing, I too want to join you in our request to asking the Department of Defense to give us information regarding the ADBS issue and the recent near collision, but obviously the tragic accident that happened with a CRJ and a Black Hawk helicopter. The fact that the military asked for an exemption, and in the granting of that exemption with the FAA, made it seem as if that was going to be a rare exemption used only infrequently, to later only find out that it had issued a statement to Congresswoman from the D.C. area, Eleanor Holmes Norton, that it was basically turning off ADBS 100% of the time. And I think that our FAA acting administrator shed some light on this, but certainly not enough. And I agree with you. We need to have the answers, information that has been presented to the National Transportation Safety Board. That information has to inform us as to this interaction between transportation corridors that are vital to protect for the public safety and what the Department of Defense is using the DC airspace for today, and what are those safeguards. So I will work with you to get the answers that we need from the Air Force. Thank you for holding this important hearing. Welcome, Mr. Ortberg. Thank you for being here. I also want to acknowledge the families that are here. As the chairman said, you have been playing a critical role in aviation safety. People like Nadia Milleron or Javier De Luis, who was an active member of the expert panel, have channeled their unimaginable grief into very positive, purposeful actions for the flying public. And I want to also acknowledge the brave whistleblowers who come forward at great personal risk to themselves to speak about the truth on quality and safety that are so important and so instrumental. I know, Mr. Ortberg, the families are very worried about the company's renegotiation of a plea agreement and the corporate monitoring, and maybe we'll have a chance to talk about that today. We're here today, though, Mr. Ortberg, to see if Boeing and your new leadership are making the fundamental changes that we would like to see to return the trust and the Boeing company to that iconic manufacturer. I think that for many decades, as the chairman mentioned, thank you for mentioning all of that history that includes much success in the state of Washington, the company was the pinnacle of manufacturing success. But we shouldn't forget that that success is also critical to our national security, to our economy. The company employs over 67,000 people in the state of Washington. I think the whole supply chain is well over 130,000 people and contributes $79 billion to the American economy. Boeing remains the largest exporter, and I can assure you I believe in more exports. And I'd like to see a brighter future for Boeing, and recently met with the University of Washington and Mr. Ortberg in many parts of our aviation supply chain to understand how a tech hub could take us in a manufacturing production to a higher rate of production. This, I believe, is so important. I think that what we're trying to understand is getting rid of safety inspectors is no trade-off, when in reality, aviation innovation can help us with both quality and safety. However, the company must address these manufacturing quality issues. As the chairman mentioned, the two 737 MAX jet crashes killing 346 people, and the Alaska door plug that happened last year. We know the economic impacts of this. Obviously, the MAX, because of a shortcut in safety, cost $35 billion to the company. The door incident and the financial costs to that are just not even good business. But we owe it to the families today to make sure that we are implementing the changes that are necessary to make sure that we are the leaders in aviation safety. I believe that starts with a robust safety management system, and that is what our expert panel found, a requirement from our safety bill to listen to NASA and to other industry leaders about what would help us in our safety culture. And they basically said that these were the important elements of a mandatory safety management system. So today, Mr. Ortberg, I'll be asking you about that. And I know that the reputation of the company in the past has been about instituting safety. But in 2020, when we passed the aviation safety bill, the law put the FAA back in charge of approving ODA unit members and restricting the FAA from delegating critical tasks relating to critical design features. And I will want to ask you about that today, and how, if the company had a safety management system, yet we still saw the problems of the door plug and other issues. So these issues about inspector staffing models, service difficulty reports, whistleblower retaliation are all issues I hope we address today at this hearing. This country needs a strong FAA to do its oversight job. The Boeing organizational design authorization that is expiring soon will need to be reauthorized. It will need to be pushed through by the FAA. The last Federal Aviation Administration Boeing Aviation Safety Oversight Office leader, Ian Whan, decided to give an extension for 3 years, hoping that Boeing would make and show progress on that oversight authority before issuing a longer ODA. So we would love to hear about that today, whether the standards laid out in Ian Whan's oversight are being met at the Boeing company. The FAA needs to continue to play that strong oversight role, and the FAA needs to keep pace with technology. If the FAA, and I think NASA could be playing a larger role here in helping on technology, but the Department of Transportation Inspector General identified 16 weaknesses in the FAA's oversight of Boeing's quality management, concluding that the FAA was, quote, not effective at identifying and resolving production issues. And this was despite conducting over 300 audits at Boeing in a 3-year period of time. And yet the FAA wasn't able to detect these critical manufacturing deficits. The issue of the verification optimization program that was to literally basically replace quality inspectors with mechanic self-inspection, I think was the wrong approach. And the airworthiness standards for both the MAX 7 and MAX 10, instead of the design fixes, there were many issues that the Inspector General found were shortcomings. So we as a nation want to be the leader in aviation. We have to be the leader in aviation safety. Mr. Ortberg, you need to channel Bill Boeing. You need to change the safety culture at Boeing, and we're glad you did that by starting your tenure in Seattle. That matters, and that oversight matters in helping us resume the leadership position in aviation. So I look forward to your testimony this morning, those critical steps that the company is taking to restore the safety culture and the manufacturing excellence so our country can again be the leader in aviation and aviation safety. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.